It is day 26 of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. I'm Michael Oku. Welcome. At least 8 people are dead after a neighborhood on the outskirts of Kyiv came under heavy shelling overnight. And despite the weeks-long siege, the eastern port of Mariupol has defied a Russian deadline to surrender. The European Union's top diplomat says Russia's tactics are a war crime.
A blast that shook the entire city of Kyiv. Fires erupted amid the wreckage of the mall that was hit by Russian shelling. Firefighters that rushed to the scene were able to pull at least one person out of the rubble alive. But the aftermath is a scene of devastation. Parts of the mall were completely obliterated. Windows blown out. Metal twisted. Craters in what used to be the parking lot. Civilians killed in the bombing of civilian infrastructure. Russian troops have been hitting Kyiv with a series of strikes, including on apartment buildings. But for now, their advance has largely stalled on the outskirts of the city. Ukraine rejected an ultimatum for the city of Mariupol in the country's east to surrender to Russian forces. Russia had offered safe passage out of Mariupol, but only for those who would lay down their weapons. Conditions in the besieged city continue to be difficult. Food and water are scarce. Medical help is hard to come by. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy again condemned the attack on the city.
The blockade of Mariupol will go down in history as a war crime. To do this to a peaceful city is terrorism that will be remembered in centuries to come. And the more Ukrainians tell the world about it, the more support we will get. The more Russia uses terror against Ukraine, the more it will suffer the consequences.
In Mariupol, Ukrainians plan to keep on resisting. Surrender, they say, is out of the question.
Sergei Petukov, former Deputy Minister of Justice and now a law lecturer at the National University of Kyiv, joins us now. Sergei, thank you so much for making the time for us today. But first, we've seen this morning the terrible destruction caused by Russian bombs to a Kyiv neighborhood. How are people in the city coping with this violence, and how are you coping?
Right. So this is the shopping mall in my area, and I could actually both hear and see the blast last night. So we are talking to each other, to our neighbors on various chats, and people are just, of course, straight away rushing to get more information. What was hit? What are the consequences? What's going on? There's no panic in the city. People are just making sure that their close ones are safe, and if they left the houses, if the houses are intact, and if the windows are still there. So I think we are at this point quite used to these attacks, and everybody's well coordinated and knows what can happen.
Sergei, I have to say, I'm going to keep this personal for a moment. I think so many viewers watch what's going on in Ukraine, and they look at it with some degree of incredulity. In fact, looking at you right now, you as cool as ice. How are you coping with this? What is going on with the people that allows them to just soldier on?
You can't believe how humans are adapting to any circumstances they're living in. I mean, it's a shock the first days, but then people get used to sirens, people get used to attacks. Again, I'm in this neighborhood that hears the shots throughout all of those 3 weeks, so we're kind of used to that. You go to to do shopping, and you hear some blasts. That's just part of your life now. You're taking precautions, but you're keeping cool. Those who could not cope with that left the city and had a right to do that. Those who stayed, we know what's going to happen. We know that we have to be prepared. We're psychologically stable, and we're just flexible enough to get used to that.
Psychologically stable. Okay, more questions for you. Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, has just announced a reinforced curfew in the capital starting later tonight, asking people to stay either at home or in shelters. Why is he doing that?
Right, Michael. So that's the third time that this has been happening. And each time I think it was for reason that we were expecting Russian attacks on the ground within the city. We expected incursion of their small groups within the city. And in order to be able to effectively stop them, you have to ensure that no civilian is outside. So I think everybody understands that. And that means that tomorrow, whoever is met on the streets can be presumed to be an enemy, and therefore, if people can, our armed forces can react upon it, because we've seen the Russians disguised as civilians, as ambulances, as firefighters. So it's critical to have this curfew for our armed forces and territorial defense to be able to stop anyone who is on the street without a sound reason.
Understood. I want to get to Mariupol. The residents there, of course, as you know, have refused a Russian ultimatum to surrender. So it seems that determination to resist the Russian invasion remains strong, despite the fact that thousands are trapped.
Exactly. I'm talking to many people. I talk to my neighbors, to my friends. I see what's going on. The morale stays high. I don't think anyone is panicking at this point. On the contrary, people get more coordinated and better organized. We are hoping for the best, but prepared for the worst.
That is Hennady Trukhanov, a former Deputy Justice Minister of Ukraine. Really appreciate your time and perspective, sir.